You've probably heard this before. Having an emergency fund is non-negotiable. 6 months of expenses, sitting in savings, safe. But here's what almost nobody tells you. The way most people store their emergency fund is quietly draining their wealth year after year without them ever noticing. It's not that having an emergency fund is wrong. It's how it's being done that's the problem. Today we're diving into a mistake that almost nobody talks about because it doesn't feel like a mistake at all. It actually feels responsible. We'll look at the math, a fictional case study, and why even the most disciplined people keep falling into this trap. Welcome TAFA Finance, where we explain investing concepts in a simple way. By the way, this video does not contain any financial advice. Let's start with the part almost nobody explains properly. An emergency fund matters. That's not up for debate. But the real problem isn't whether you have one. It's where most people keep it and how long they leave it sitting there untouched. Most people park their emergency fund in a regular savings account earning close to 0% interest, and then leave it there for years, even long after the amount has far outgrown what they actually need for a real emergency. Here's the part that surprises almost everyone the first time they see it. Inflation doesn't pause just because your money is labeled for emergencies. If your emergency fund is sitting in an account earning 0.5% a year, while inflation runs at 4 to 5% a year, that money is quietly losing purchasing power every single year. Not the number on the screen, that stays the same, but what that number can actually buy in the real world that keeps shrinking. Let's put this into a fictional example. Meet Rena and Andy. Both are 27 years old, and both have just finished building an emergency fund of $18,000 USD, roughly 6 months of their expenses. Rena puts the entire $18,000 USD into a regular savings account. She feels safe, and honestly, she's not wrong. The money is accessible anytime and the number never drops. But Rena never revisits this amount. 10 years later, her monthly expenses have climbed significantly due to inflation and normal lifestyle growth, but her emergency fund is still sitting at $18,000 USD. Now only enough to cover about 3 months of expenses instead of 6. And because of inflation, the real value of that $18,000 USD is now worth roughly what $12,000 USD was worth a decade ago. Andy does something slightly different. He still keeps around $6,000 USD in a regular savings account for true immediate emergencies, but the remaining $12,000 USD goes into money market funds and short-term deposits that stay liquid, accessible within days, but earn meaningfully more than a regular savings account. Every year, he also adjusts his emergency fund target to match his rising expenses, instead of letting it sit frozen at the same number for years. 10 years later, Andy's emergency fund isn't just still relevant to his current 6 months of expenses. Its real value has also held up far better, because a meaningful portion of it was actually working against inflation instead of just sitting still. Let that sink in for a second. Rena isn't a careless person. She did the thing that's generally considered responsible, built an emergency fund, stayed disciplined, and never touched it. But she quietly lost thousands, even millions, in real value. Not because she overspent, but because she never revisited where that money was sitting or how much it actually needed to be. Now here's where it gets interesting, because there's real data behind this, not just a fictional story. Multiple studies on saving behavior show that most people set their emergency fund target once early on and rarely revisit that number again. Meanwhile, the cost of living, especially in major cities, rises consistently year after year. An emergency fund that covers 6 months of expenses today, left untouched without review, can quietly shrink to only 3 or 4 months of coverage within 5 to 7 years. This is the sneaky trap. An emergency fund doesn't attack your finances directly. It attacks your sense of security. You feel protected because there's a large number sitting in your account, while the actual protective power of that number keeps eroding every year without you noticing. And this is where most people make the second mistake. They think, I'll top it up whenever I have some extra money. But that extra money rarely shows up on its own, and a real review rarely happens unless it's deliberately scheduled. So the emergency fund just sits there at the old number while the world around it keeps changing. Let's talk about why even financially disciplined people keep falling into this pattern anyway. Because this isn't really a discipline problem, it's a psychology problem. First, there's a false sense of completion. Once someone finally builds their emergency fund, there's a huge wave of relief, and that relief makes people stop thinking about it entirely. The emergency fund becomes a box that's already checked, not something that needs ongoing attention. Second, there's fear of losing liquidity. Many people are reluctant to move any portion of their emergency fund into slightly more productive instruments because they are afraid it'll become harder to access exactly when they need it most. In reality, plenty of instruments remain fast to access while still offering meaningfully better returns than a basic savings account. Third, there's the "it's there, so it's fine" bias. Because the whole point of an emergency fund is peace of mind, most people stop optimizing it the moment it looks like a big enough number on screen, without ever recalculating whether that number still matches their actual current cost of living. So how do you actually apply this? Decide right now, not later. On a yearly schedule to review your emergency fund. Check what your actual monthly expenses look like today and adjust your target based on that current number, not the number you set years ago and never touched again. Decide where that emergency fund should actually sit. This doesn't mean putting all of it into something risky. An emergency fund still needs to be safe and fast to access. But there's a big difference between a regular savings account earning close to nothing and a money market fund or short-term deposit that's still quick to cash out but offers a far more reasonable return. Decide which portion truly needs to be accessible within hours and which portion can comfortably wait a few days without causing any problem. And most importantly, decide now that an emergency fund isn't a set-it-and-forget-it system. It's something that needs to keep adjusting as your life changes, as your income grows, as your cost of living rises, as your responsibilities increase. This is really the same lesson that shows up again and again in investing. It's never about one big dramatic decision. It's about small, consistent habits that get revisited over time, habits that rarely feel exciting in the moment, but that carry enormous weight over the long run. Because here's the truth, Rena isn't a bad person for what she did. She just made a decision without ever seeing the full cost of leaving it unexamined. Most people never sit down and calculate how much real value quietly disappears from an emergency fund that's left untouched for years without review. It's not visible. There's no notification that says you just lost purchasing power. It just quietly loses strength year after year. And that's the real danger here. It's not that emergency funds are bad. It's not that you need to put everything into higher risk assets chasing better returns. But letting your emergency fund sit frozen without ever reviewing it is one of the most invisible financial mistakes most people will ever make. Because it happens slowly, it feels safe. And it's even seen as the responsible thing to do, which makes it almost impossible to notice. So next time you check your emergency fund, don't just ask if the money is still there. Ask if that amount is still actually enough for your life today and whether it's sitting in the right place. That single question, answered honestly, could save you from quietly losing thousands in real value without ever realizing it. And that's all for today. If you found this video helpful, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Where is your emergency fund sitting right now? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.